around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent.
Come on, man.
We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
All right, welcome to it as we kick off a little bit of a twist on the open here. Appreciate you being here to start a beautiful Thursday here on the Steve Gruber Show. Three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, in Texas, a move underway that in several other states require proof of citizenship and residency in order to vote. Seems like a very good idea, and I can't figure out why no one would say no. Number two, the so-called Pelosi Act making its way through the House and Senate. If signed into law, it will prohibit the buying and selling of stock by those in Congress. Pretty good idea. And number three, the latest discovery of Russiagate. FBI Director Kash Patel has made a shocking discovery. Multiple so-called burn bags stored in a secret room inside the bureau that contained thousands of sensitive documents on the origin of Crossfire Hurricane. Wow. You can't make this stuff up. Burn bags are typically used to destroy classified documents. But it looks like the Goonies, well, they forgot these bags. Probably because they tried to hide them so diligently. Out of sight, out of mind, hidden in a back room for nobody to see. In case you missed it, this is what Kash Patel had to say about finding a secret room on Joe Rogan earlier this year. Listen to this.
Me, as the director of the FBI, the former Russiagate guy, when I first got to the Bureau, found a room that Comey and others hid from the world in the Hoover building, full of documents and computer hard drives that no one had ever seen or heard of. Locked the key and hid access and just said, no one's ever going to find this place.
What?
Yeah. So my guys are going through that right now.
What's in there?
A lot of stuff. I mean, that's the thing. People are like, well, okay, go arrest him. And I'm like, okay, well, how about you let me run a methodical investigation?
Yeah, how about you let me run a methodical investigation? And boy, some real treasure has popped up. This really is a full circle moment, considering Kash was the chief investigator of the Russia hoax years ago. He's the one that uncovered the government was illegally spying on the Trump campaign. His findings are what got Mueller and Durham appointed as special counsels on this case. Kash Patel knows this case inside and out. And now, one of the documents that Patel's FBI found in a burn bag was the classified annex to former special counsel John Durham's final report. A damning report on intelligence that completely undermines the Russia narrative altogether and what the FBI was really up to. Remember Jim Comey? Keep that name in mind. Our friend John Solomon has asked President Trump about this annex and says that Trump has promised to declassify it, maybe as early as this week. And this is what we should expect to find. Here's John Solomon.
Here's what it's going to show. We already established that Barack Obama and John Brennan knew in early July 2016 that Hillary Clinton was concocting a fake Russia collusion story to try to harm Donald Trump's chances of winning. We're now going to have absolute emphatic evidence that the FBI, the people who opened up on Donald Trump, on Carter Page, on George Papadopoulos, they also knew that Hillary Clinton was pulling this dirty trick, and they were playing into it. They were using the Steele dossier, a direct product of the Clinton campaign. They were using people like an Australian ambassador named Downer, who was a good friend of the Clintons. All these people were part of that dirty trick, and the FBI knew before they opened up and as they were opening up and as they were continuing that Hillary Clinton was behind this. That is what that annex is expected to show all of us.
Tie it all together in one easy-to-use, reusable package. Tie it all together. Here are all the players. Now the players, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Kash Patel, DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard, and Attorney General Pam Bondi working on declassifying this bombshell, which will reportedly be handed off to the Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Chuck Grassley, who's been after the white whale for years. Well, he might have found Moby Dick. It's quite frankly shocking that we even have this much documentation on the Obama-Clinton enterprise's criminal deeds. Trump says it's pretty astounding to be vindicated after all of these years with so much evidence. Here he is.
What they've done is so bad for this country. And it really started right at the 2016 election. And there's a difference when you know it And when you know it, and it's all written down for
Prove
you.
it.
I mean, it's all there. It's right there. The orders, the memos, the whole thing is right there.
Were you surprised when you saw it all laid out?
I would have thought they maybe would have thrown it out. I don't know. They handed it. They say, put this in highly classified. It was in highly classified, in areas that normally you wouldn't get to. But I guess when you put it in there, it's a file, right? And they got to it. And it's unbelievable. When you read it, it's unbelievable. A real hoax, it's a real hoax.
A real hoax. I do think it's shocking to be finding all of this in writing. In writing. I wonder, you probably do too. I kind of sit here and wonder. Is there a courageous whistleblower that may have been helping them out a little bit, that stuffed those burn bags into a back room and said, well, they're out of sight. Maybe they'll be here just long enough for the next team to find them. Helping out Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard. It was 20 FBI and CIA agents who confirmed to Tulsi Gabbard's team that Obama's team manipulated the Trump-Russia intelligence completely. I wouldn't be surprised if there are more who have stories to tell. Would you? I just wouldn't. I think it'd be fabulous. There's a lot of men and women out there scared to risk their lives and their careers, but who are sick about this blatant attempt at a cover-up of a criminal enterprise. This could be the final nail in the coffin, definitive evidence that there was a coordinated plan to conspire against the duly elected incoming president-elect of the United States. And by the way, no statute of limitations on a conspiracy charge. CIA Director Ratcliffe seems to think that DOJ is going to have a hole-in-one with this annex, a hole-in-one, big shot. Listen.
John Brennan testified to John Durham in August of 2020. He also testified to the House Oversight Committee in 2022. Hillary Clinton testified before John Durham under oath in 2022. James Comey testified before the Senate committee in September 2020. All of that's within the last 5 years. And much of that testimony is, frankly, completely inconsistent with what our underlying intelligence that is about to be declassified in the Durham Annex, what that reflects. And so, Pam Bondi does have a strike force. It is a different Department of Justice, a different FBI, and an opportunity to look at how these people really did conspire to run a hoax, a fraud on the American people and against Donald Trump's presidency.
Yeah, and against Donald Trump's presidency. I'm glad to see this team in place, aren't you? Justice has been coming for a long time. It's what the American people want. It's a clear, resounding mandate for the Trump administration to continue on. We'll pick up there when we come back. Nice to see you as we start this day. These are the biggest revelations of the biggest story of my life. This is the biggest scandal in American history. We're not going to forget about it here. They might not cover it over at MSLSD or Chicken Noodle News, but we're going to cover it here every single day and show you the facts as they continue to come out. Nice to see you today. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Yeah, justice has been coming for a very long time. It's what the American people have been demanding. It's what they want. And it's definitely a clear, resounding mandate for the Trump administration, as I mentioned going into the break. From Rasmussen Reports pollster Mark Mitchell, a friend of mine here on the program, says his polling indicates the same thing. Here's what he said.
This is getting back to the Obama stuff. Agree or disagree with this statement about the manipulation of intelligence in the Obama administration. Accountability has to take place. It is critical for the survival of our country that people who perpetrated such crimes are held accountable. Talking about Crossfire Hurricane, that's a Mike Flynn quote. 48% strongly agree, 20% somewhat agree. That's a 70% number. And that gets back to the 30% trust the federal government. 70% want this system fixed.
Yeah, of course they do. 70%. And if you know what the facts are and how the investigative agencies like the FBI and the intel community were weaponized against the president of the United States and his entire administration, I think that number will be pushed even higher, because at some point the Democrats have to admit this is bad. I don't see how the architects behind Crossfire Hurricane are going to explain this away. No amount of MSNBC hits could save them now, even though the out-of-touch outlets sure can try. Here they are pretending to cover this story. Listen.
In an effort to try and distract from the uproar over the Jeffrey Epstein case, President Trump is trying to rewrite the history of Russia's meddling in the 2016 election in accusing former President Barack Obama of treason. The director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, alleged Obama and his deputies engaged in a, quote, seditious conspiracy by manufacturing a false assessment that Russia meddled in the 2016 election to help Donald Trump's campaign. To be very clear, these allegations are demonstrably false and so ridiculous that it led to a rare rebuke from former President Obama's office.
No, what it led to was Obama panicking and saying, this isn't real. They call themselves journalists. Funny, isn't it? They should be arrested for impersonating journalists. They should be ashamed at least, but certainly they're not. There's something to be said about leaving the past in the past. But this is not that. The deep state has been waging war on the America's first agenda for a decade now. Ever since Donald Trump came down the escalator, the America First agenda has been under attack. Not without a flurry of arrests and consequences will we move forward. Attorney General Pam Bondi has the chance to send a clear message that undermining the will of the American people will not go unnoticed and will not go unpunished. I hope she does what she needs to do, even with the annex in hand. It's going to be an uphill battle, I'll tell you that. There will be questions about authenticity, about who put the burn bags in that room and at whose order. I'm sure the courts will throw up hurdle after hurdle, but it's a fight worth having. Donald Trump has admitted that he went easy on Hillary Clinton during his first administration in the name of moving forward, but he says he feels differently now about going after his political opponents for their obvious crimes, not only just against him, against this country. Listen.
The concept of putting her in jail, indicting her, all the things that you have to do, it's tough stuff. And I said, we don't want to do that. In fact, you remember I made speeches when I mentioned her name, they started to lock her up. Yeah. And I said, no, this is after we won. We just won. And I said, we have to get back to, we want to heal. And yet they did it to me. Yeah. So I feel differently. I mean, I'm a human being. I have my feelings too. And so I feel differently about it. Obama, what he did was terrible. What Brennan did and Clapper and Comey and all these lightweights, they're stupid people actually. But what they did, and so unnecessary. And they made it really hard. But ultimately, I don't know, they toughen you up. You either learn that you can do that. How many people could handle that? Yeah. I've had so many people said, how did you handle that every day? And they come up with these different scams. They're all scams, and they're still doing it. They're doing it now.
Yeah. In my opinion, there's going to be an obvious case against the likes of John Brennan, James Comey, James Clapper, and more. There's not going to be much for them to hide behind. How are you going to explain this away? Burn bags with the evidence. Prosecuting Barack Obama, a whole different beast. We all know that presidential immunity covers a multitude of sins, and it likely will cover most of these, if not all. But my friend John Solomon has a pretty clever recommendation for the Justice Department in catching Obama by giving him a taste of his own medicine. Here's John again.
I want to address Obama for a second. I know President Trump has every right to be frustrated with him. I think President Trump's analysis last week was right. I think my immunity rule might protect him on the original charges. That's what most legal experts tell me, that that ruling is so sweeping it will protect Obama for what he did in office. However, Barack Obama can now be summoned before a grand jury. He cannot take the Fifth Amendment because he has immunity from prosecution. He'll have to tell the truth. If he lies as a private citizen about what he did as president, he'll no longer have that immunity. And that is a trap that Obama is sitting potentially facing. And I want to say the irony to that, because on January 5th, 2017, he presided over a meeting in the White House where the FBI had just cleared Mike Flynn of any wrongdoing, and they schemed in that meeting how they might be able to jam up Mike Flynn. And they came up with the idea, we'll lure him into an interview, catch him into a lie, and then prosecute him that way. Barack Obama now is about to face a potential similar situation as the one he created unfairly for Mike Flynn.
You know, jamming up Flynn, James Comey had experience in that. Just get him into an interview situation and try to figure out how they have lied. That's what he did to Martha Stewart, destroying her career. That's James Comey, a former FBI director, the guy that portrays himself as the world's tallest Boy Scout. He's a scumbag. And I like what John says here. It's bold, but as he said, it's not like it hasn't been done before. It certainly has. This bombshell could be the thing that rocks the deep state. Big props to Patel and Gabbard for digging in deep. Americans want justice. So it's time to get ready to hit hard, really hard, and hit back as many times as it takes. Somebody has to pay for this. Somebody has to be held accountable. We demand it here. We're never letting this story go. They can ignore it at MSNBC. They can ignore it at Chicken Noodle News. I don't give a damn. We're gonna follow it right here. I'll be back. Another big headline for you here. New Zealand reversing its ill-fated oil and gas ban. That's right. The Green New Dealers are failing globally. Open borders failed. The Green New Deal failed. All these far left-wing bizarre policies and agendas are all going away. New Zealand reversing its ban on new oil and gas exploration that was put in place under Jacinda Ardern, the former far left-wing prime minister. The government voted there on Thursday, earlier today. They're 16 hours ahead, keep that in mind, to overturn the ban, with Shane Jones, the resources minister, arguing that climate change was largely moral hysteria. Moral hysteria. Yeah, that sounds about right. He said overturning the ban would stoke investment in petroleum exploration, help ease winter energy supply issues. Mr. Jones said in a statement, the ill-fated exploration ban of 2018 has exacerbated shortages in our domestic gas supply by obliterating new investment. Well, welcome back to the free world, New Zealand. Nice to see you here today. Did you know that American homeowners nationwide have over $32 trillion in equity? Cyber criminals are targeting it with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing. House alarms, doorbell cameras, deadbolts, all of these things don't work against these thieves. They're trying to steal your equity, not your TV. If your title isn't being monitored, scammers can transfer the title out of your name. Yes, they can do this. using a one-page document they file down to the county and then take out loans against your property or sell it behind your back. The scariest part, you don't even know what's happening until you start getting notices in the mailbox, ones that you probably ignore, but by then, the damage has been done. The best way to protect your equity is with triple lock protection from my friends at Home Title Lock. Triple lock protection is 24/7 monitoring, alerts of any changes, and God forbid, if the worst happens, restoration services at no out-of-pocket cost to you. You can check on your home's title today and make sure you're not already a victim. Get a free title history report and a 30-day free triple lock protection by going to HometitleLock.com using the promo code Gruber. That's HometitleLock.com, and the promo code is Gruber. Coming up, we're going to visit with Shaheen Gobadi. He is in Rome today. He's part of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. It's basically your government in exile. They're going to weigh in. Their big annual meeting in Rome today. We'll talk about it coming up straight ahead on the Steve Gruber Show. A little bit of breaking news out of the city of Minneapolis just moments in. A Delta flight on its way to Amsterdam gets diverted to Minneapolis after severe turbulence. Here we go again. 24 people or more injured and hospitalized from severe turbulence on a Delta flight. They had to divert to Minneapolis where they were met by rescue crews. We'll have more on that coming up We're just seeing that story break at the moment. Over across the seas, we've got the National Council of Resistance in Iran. Shaheen Gobadi is joining me, a U.S.-educated nuclear engineer, member of the National Council of Resistance. Iran's parliament in exile, and they have a conference in Rome this week. That's where he joins me. Shaheen, nice to see you today. Thank you for being here.
We lost Shaheen.
We lost him. Okay, we got to reconnect with Rome. In that case, I'll take a closer look at this incident out of Minneapolis. Looking at this, just passing the wire is this report about 25 people sent to the hospital. Delta flight diverted to Minneapolis after severe turbulence. Apparently, these folks not expecting what happened in that jet. All right, we're back with Shaheen now. He's connected from Rome. Shaheen, good to have you here on the program. I know you're having your annual conferences in Rome of the National Council on the Resistance of Iran. You are the parliament in exile, and you get together fairly regularly. A lot of changes since the last time we spoke. We've had a bombing run by the United States attacking the nuclear facilities in Iran. A lot of changes that have maybe weakened the regime there. What are your conversations focused on today? Right, we seem to be having some difficulties connecting there around the globe. This happens sometimes. We'll see if we can get him back on in a minute, but let's see if we can connect that and make it a stronger connection. I apologize for the situation. Sometimes technology, when they're on the other side of the globe, that's what happens. We'll keep an eye on that and see if we can get that back in a moment. Meanwhile, the Senate, we're going to talk about something. We're going to shift gears altogether now. The United States Senate has advanced the Pelosi Act to end congressional stock trading. A Senate committee voting to advance. This is a really important story because what it says is Nancy Pelosi, by the way, who Donald Trump says has done really, really well for herself in stock trading, should not be allowed to do that. So you've got what they call the Pelosi Act. Senator Josh Hawley introducing a bill barring members of Congress and their spouses from trading stocks at all, even their spouses. It was named to Democrats' dismay for Representative Nancy Pelosi, who has come under scrutiny for extensive trading without evidence that she ever did so using insider information on Capitol Hill, except the evidence would be her bank account, is somehow she magically made trades through her entire career in Congress, or her husband did, that enriched them completely. In conjunction with Senator Gary Peters of Michigan, the top Democrat on the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, Hawley offered an alternative to the panel that would ditch the contentious name and expand the prohibitions to the president and vice president, but only for future administrations. We have an opportunity here to do something that the public has wanted us to do for decades, and that is to ban members of Congress from profiting on information that, frankly, only members of Congress have. Said, oh, here's the thing. They have all of this information, and because they have all of this information, they're able to make stock trades. Now, Pelosi's never been accused directly or, faced any criminal accusation. She's not exactly Bob Menendez in this deal, but look, we all understand these people go to Washington as members of Congress and come back multimillionaires. Something's going on. In fact, I'd like to go to bite number 7 here, Anthony. Take me to bite number 7. Donald Trump says it needs to be investigated so we understand exactly what has happened. Listen.
I like it conceptually, and Nancy Pelosi became rich by having inside information. She made a fortune with her husband, and I think that's disgraceful. So in that sense, I'd like it, but I'd have to really see I study these things very carefully, and this just happened. So I'll take a look at it. But conceptually, I like it, and what I do think is Nancy Pelosi should be investigated because she has the highest return of anybody practically in the history of Wall Street, save a few. How did that happen? It happened by she knows exactly what's going to happen, what's going to be announced. She buys stock, and then the stock goes up after the announcement's made. And she ought to be investigated.
There you have it. The president saying that Nancy Pelosi should be investigated for all of her enrichment. And look, is it any secret that these politicians have insider information? No, they're working on bills all the time, bills that impact stock prices every single day. But I'm not sure how you would ban, how would you go about it? It all has to go into a blind account, like it happens when there's a president of the United States goes into a blind account. You can't make trades. You can't do things. You can't see what your investments are doing or where they're being applied, right? All right, pretty interesting. Gary Peters, the top Democrat on the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, was also in on this. Hawley offered an alternative to the panel that would ditch the contentious name and expand the prohibitions to the president and vice president, but only for future administrations. The new senator from Ohio, Bernie Moreno, called the effort a publicity show and said the committee was moving too hastily to approve the altered legislation. Moreno noted that he had co-sponsored the original act, the Pelosi Act, with Hawley. Yeah, they called it the Nancy Pelosi Act. They took they took offense to that. Who gives a damn? She's enriched herself. You can't prove that. I don't have to prove that. I'm a pundit, not a journalist. I'm like people at MSNBC. I'm not a journalist. I'm a pundit, and I can say that. We know what happened there. It's pretty obvious what happened there, right? Meanwhile, J.P. Morgan partners with Coinbase to expand crypto access for 80 million customers. This crypto thing continues to expand, doesn't it? Yes, it does. The crypto world continues to expand, and now J.P. Morgan is in the game. That's right. J.P. Morgan is in the game. Under the partnership, J.P. Morgan customers will soon be able to use Chase credit cards to fund Coinbase purchases. Redeem Chase Ultimate Reward points for USDC, a U.S. dollar-pegged stablecoin. Chase bank accounts directly to Coinbase for streamlined crypto transactions. So crypto is becoming mainstream, is what I'm saying here. And while the elites like Nancy got rich off crypto, hardworking American patriots like you were often left behind. Well, that doesn't have to be the case anymore. Block Trust IRA is changing that, bringing the crypto opportunity to real Americans, people like you. With crypto fueling President Trump's America First economic miracle, now is your chance to join the movement. The Animus AI trading platform, it runs 24/7. It crushes old school strategies and helps patriots like you build serious wealth like the elites. Look, I buy crypto. Ivy and I are in. This has been named the #1 crypto tech platform by Bitcoin Magazine. Block Trust IRA offers up to $200 million in protection, and its clients sometimes are seeing returns better than 250%. Sounds crazy, but remember, Bitcoin is the greatest appreciating asset in world history. Doesn't matter if you're a teacher, a truck driver, a plumber, a carpenter, you're retired, it doesn't matter. It's your time. And you can get up to $2,500 in bonus crypto in your account if you qualify. Sign up right now, SteveGruberCrypto.com, SteveGruberCrypto.com. Maybe making you wealthy and making retirement great again. All right, we'll take a break, and we'll be right back on The Steve Gruber Show. All right, well, we're still trying to connect with Shaheen Gobadi from the National Council of Resistance on Iran. If we don't connect with him here in the next few minutes, we'll get him tomorrow from Rome. A little touchy service there today, as you can imagine, as we go halfway around the world. Meanwhile, let's talk about the economy for a minute. I mean, you go back to early April, Liberation Day, in the days of April. It's going to be the worst market since 1931. All those ominous doom and gloom predictions, right? Yeah, all those ominous doom and gloom predictions. And even before that, oh, the tariffs are going to destroy the economy. The economy is going to be in the toilets. Donald Trump's going to bankrupt America. Well, that didn't happen. Abby Phillips over on CNN 4 months ago, constantly banging the economy is going to capsize drum. Now we know for sure she was wrong, 100% wrong. So were all the other so-called experts. The real expert turned out to be Donald Trump. Again, listen.
Palpable panic on Wall Street, red numbers and worries about something else that starts with an R, a recession.
What we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time.
He's talking about that period of transition is what he's talking about is his firm belief that tariffs are going to be the main way that the United States brings in revenue. Never mind what they do to the prices that people actually pay when they purchase goods in a global economy. I mean, Scott, virtually no one who understands economics believes that tariffs are a good idea, including all those people that we played in the clip to get into this conversation, most of whom side with Trump. They believe in Trump. They're supporters of his.
Yeah, he firmly believes in it. It's his theory. And guess what? He ran on it, and he got elected on it. And for his theory to take root, it will take some period of time. And he will rise and fall on this theory.
Are you comfortable with Trump rolling the dice on the United States' economy based on his hunch that we should go back to, the McKinley-era tariffs?
Am I comfortable that the person who was duly elected president of the United States be allowed to govern in the way that he said he would in order to win the election? Of course I am.
Scott Jennings brings me joy. He gets that look on his face. Do I want to let the duly elected president of the United States run the country the way he said he would when he ran for the job? Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea. I think it's a pretty good idea from where I stand, too. Look, the markets are solid. The GDP came in yesterday 3%. 3%. It was supposed to be up 2.3%. It was up 3%. So the economy far better in that regard than anticipated. The markets are pretty flat. They didn't really react much. The Dow was down 170 points, NASDAQ up 31, and S&P flat. It doesn't impact anybody. The price of gasoline is down. The price of groceries is down compared to where it was when Joe Biden was in office. Yeah, that guy. Anyhow, President Trump says it's now time to lower the rates. Of course, Jerome Powell didn't do that yesterday. He had a chance again to lower interest rates, really help people out, help this country out. Refused again. Listen to this.
You lower them, and let's see if there's inflation. Right now, there's no inflation. Everybody thought there would be. All we have is billions of dollars of cash pouring into our country from other countries that took advantage of us for many, many years. You know, they were taken advantage of. We were like the stupid people that didn't know what they were doing. They took advantage of us. Other countries, friend and foe. And by the way, the friend was oftentimes much worse than the foe when it comes to trade. So if that happens, what you do is you raise your rates and you do what you have to do to stop inflation. But we're keeping the rates high, and it's hurting people from buying houses, and we don't want that.
All right, there you have it. We need to help people out. We need to help people out. That's exactly right. And look, when you're buying a house, you're buying a used car, you're spending money, you're putting money on your credit card, whatever it may be, right? If you can lower the interest rates, you save yourself a pile of money. You can get a better house, a better car, a better deal. Or just save money, buy the same car, and just spend less money. Right? That's incredibly important. But Powell, no, he's not interested in any of that. It's politics. How do I know? Because here he is. Listen.
Total PCE prices rose 2.5% over the 12 months ending in June. and that, excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.7%. These readings are little changed from the beginning of the year, although the underlying composition of price changes has shifted. Services inflation has continued to ease, while increased tariffs are pushing up prices in some categories of goods. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have moved up on balance over the course of this year on news about tariffs, as reflected in both market-based and survey-based measures.
Yeah. Tariffs are pushing prices up. Where? Anything that's impacting you, I'd like to know. If you've got tariffs that are impacting your life, send me an email. Tell me about it. Go to stevegruber.com. Send me an email. Make sure you check out that website every day. You can learn a lot there. Liberty Page writes there every day, and she writes Satire Saturdays as well. Satire Saturdays. Funny stuff on the weekends from Liberty Page. Anyhow, go there. Send me an email. Are tariffs impacting you? If so, how? I'm certainly curious. And if it's real, we're going to talk about it here on the program. In the meantime, I need you to follow me on X, Facebook. You can watch live on X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, all over the place. And as we build this thing together, you and I, and all of us here and all of you out there, let's get you on board. Follow us on all those social media platforms. Make sure you hit the like button whenever possible. Slap that. You like the sound effect? Or if as Joe Biden would say, right. Thank you, Joe, for weighing in. Ice cream. Yeah, thank you, Joe. Greatly appreciate that. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Thursday. As part of the program brought to you by PuroClean's Veteran Initiative, PuroVet, because life after service deserves opportunity, ownership, and purpose. If you're a veteran, you're looking for a chance to become a business owner, well, this could be it. PuroVet.com. PuroVet.com, 855-PuroVet. You can call them on the phone as well. PuroVet, sponsoring this part of the program. Greatly appreciate that. We're watching this developing story. There was a flight leaving Salt Lake City on its way to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. They had to be diverted late yesterday after experiencing significant turbulence. 25 people transported to local hospitals. You can see it there on your screen. I think that's a feed from Fox News. 25 people transported to local hospitals, according to the airline. It was Delta Flight DL-56. 275 passengers, 13 crew members from Salt Lake. They encountered significant turbulence while en route. I wonder what kind of turbulence tossed that bird around. They landed safely last night in Minneapolis. The aircraft, an Airbus A330-900, landed safely. Medical personnel met the flight upon arrival to evaluate customers and crew. 25 of those on board were transported to local hospitals. We're grateful for the support of all emergency responders involved. Good Lord. This is why people like my daughter and Ivy get freaked out sometimes on the airline. It doesn't bother me. The airline added, by the way, safety is our number one value at Delta. And our Delta Care team is working directly with customers to support their immediate needs. Yeah. Well, some of those people need to get to Amsterdam immediately. But look, that's the way it is. You fly sometimes, you get a little bouncy up there. But tossed around so bad you needed emergency crews. I wonder if people were out of their seats because it was real calm when they hit something unexpectedly. That would be my guess. Anyhow, I'm glad that nobody was seriously hurt. At least we don't know that at this time. In the next hour, we'll have Kurt Couchman. He's from the Americans for Prosperity. What about another shutdown of the government? Does it bother you? Not really. Later, Ivy will be here. Don't miss any of it. 2 more hours of the Steve Gruber Show still to come, and you should be part of it. I'll be right back. All right, kicking off another brand new hour here of the Steve Gruber Show. Glad to have you here for the conversation, my friends. A lot to cover here today, and I'm glad you're along for the conversation. Who do you want in your foxhole? It's a question we ask here every day. It's a serious question. We're living in the foxhole of freedom here, fighting for you and fighting for freedom every single day. Here are three big things you need to know right now. Number one, Cash Patel and company have found the smoking gun, the burn bags of evidence inside the FBI they were trying to get rid of. We've got the burn bags. Number two, the movement across the country continues as there is a push now in Texas to make sure only American citizens are voting in elections. Only American citizens. That's really important. And number three, the facts are piling up. The facts are piling up against Barack Obama and everybody on down in this scandal that is only growing and will not go away. And despite the best efforts of the media that have been pulverized, by the way, you know, the media tried to destroy Donald Trump. David and Goliath, really, but David turned out to be Donald Trump, and the Goliath of the mainstream legacy media is getting crushed. CBS had to pay up. Others have had to pay up. Now there's a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit. It was CBS 60 Minutes. They had to pay up. ABC had to pay up. Don't worry, the New York Times and others are going to be paying up as well, as will the Wall Street Journal. Donald Trump has taken them to task. Oh, and he defunded NPR and PBS along the way as well, yanking out the liberals' favorite little talking heads. Yes, he's taken on the big media, and he has won. All right, so here we go. The facts are piling up against the Democrats from Barack Obama on down to Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, who's been out there just saying anything. He'll say anything. I haven't heard from Bill O'Reilly in a bit, but, boy, he's an interesting voice, isn't he? And he had this to say about Chuck Schumer. Listen.
Schumer's lying. And I very rarely use that word. I usually say he's misleading or he's a propagandist, which he is. But he's just lying. He's just head down reading something that's been written for him by one of his propaganda people. And, you know, I used to have a decent relationship with him, and I run into him from time to time in New York. I have no respect for Charles Schumer. None. None. He doesn't love this country, in my opinion. He's not looking out for you or me or anybody else. He is a rank propagandist. And again, I don't use this kind of rhetoric. All right? I usually can see two sides to this story. You know that. This guy? Oof.
Oof. Oof. This guy? Oof. Remember, Chuck Schumer's the guy that threatened Donald Trump openly in early 2017. You mess with the intel community, they can get you 6 ways to Sunday. Yeah, Chuck, we remember, because you were part of that party. Ruthless power. That's what it's about, ruthless power. Nothing more, nothing less. That's what it's all been about for the Democrats ever since Donald Trump came down that escalator. Of course, they didn't take him seriously in 2015. A year later, they took him very seriously. So seriously, in fact, they lined up against him to undermine him, to destroy him, to play dirty tricks up and down the line. The Steele dossier, bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton, the cudgel that was supposed to destroy Donald Trump. Now he's been elected 3 times to the presidency, in my opinion. I wasn't sure of that at one point. I'm completely sure of it now. The facts are in. The evidence is there. It's indisputable. It's also indisputable that Russia had nothing to do with the Trump administration or the Trump election. Crossfire Hurricane was bogus. The evidence is in. And I played this in the last hour, but I want you to hear it again. John Solomon, my good friend, investigative reporter, says Barack Obama put himself in a bit of a corner here. Listen.
I want to address Obama for a second. I know President Trump has every right to be frustrated with him. I think President Trump's analysis last week was right. I think my immunity rule might protect him on the original charges. That's what most legal experts tell me, that that ruling is so sweeping it will protect Obama for what he did in office. However, Barack Obama can now be summoned before a grand jury. He cannot take the Fifth Amendment because he has immunity from prosecution. He'll have to tell the truth. If he lies as a private citizen about what he did as president, he'll no longer have that immunity. And that is a trap that Obama is sitting potentially facing. And I want to say the irony to that, because on January 5th, 2017, he presided over a meeting in the White House where the FBI had just cleared Mike Flynn of any wrongdoing, and they schemed in that meeting how they might be able to jam up Mike Flynn. And they came up with the idea, we'll lure him into an interview, catch him into a lie, and then prosecute him that way. Barack Obama now is about to face a potential similar situation as the one he created unfairly for Mike Flynn.
And there you have it. Weighing in is John Solomon. Barack Obama. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, even though that's nothing you've ever done before in your entire life, so help you God? I do. Yeah. Meanwhile, President Trump says his thoughts on pursuing criminal charges against people like Barack Obama and those that conspired against him, well, his thoughts have changed on that. They have evolved clearly. Here he is.
Yeah. So, you know, we had Hillary Clinton down to whatever we wanted to do with her, and I felt it was inappropriate. She's the wife of a president. She was a Secretary of State, and we could have done a very big number.
Yeah.
And I said, we don't want to be doing that. Let's, you know, put it into the country and not the concept of putting her in jail, indicting her, all the things that you have to do. You know, it's tough stuff. And I said, we don't want to do that. In fact, you remember I made speeches when I mentioned her name. They started to lock her up. Yeah. And I said, no, this is after we won. We just won. And I said,
you wanted the country
we have
to
to
heal.
get back to, we want to heal. And yet they did it to me.
Yeah.
So I feel differently. I mean, I'm a human being. I have my feelings too. And so I feel differently about it. Obama, what he did was terrible. What Brennan did and Clapper and Comey and all these lightweights, I mean, they're stupid people, actually. But what they did, and so unnecessary. And they made it really hard. But ultimately, I don't know, they toughen you up. You either learn that you can do that. How many people could handle that?
Yeah.
I've had so many people said, how did you handle that every day? And they come up with these different scams. They're all scams, and they're still doing it. You know, they're doing it now.
Yeah, they are doing it. They continue to do it. They never back up from it. They keep fighting and fighting and fighting and doing it dirty behind the scenes with bogus, if I may, trumped up charges to try to bring down the president who, by the way, I was reading a Never Trump article today. I'm going to share it with you a bit later. Never Trumpers having to admit, you know what? He's having a lot of success here. He's doing pretty well. Big deals with the EU, a border that is closed, trying to end wars every single day. How do you argue with any of those policies? You don't have to like the guy. But don't let your hatred blind you to what's been successful. And there's been a lot of success here in the first 6 months. I'll take a break and be back. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Nice to see you here today. It's Thursday. God bless America. All right. All right. Americans for Prosperity. Is there going to be another looming shutdown? That's what they're warning us about today. But I'm going to say again, government shutdowns are more show. All show and no go, they used to say about certain cars when I grew up. That's kind of the way I feel about government shutdowns. Kurt Couchman, Senior Fiscal Policy Fellow at Americans for Prosperity, joining me now. Kurt, nice to have you back on the program.
Hey, Steve, it's great to be with you.
Look, a shutdown. I don't care. If that's what it takes to fix the economy, to fix the spending in this country, I don't care. Shut it all down and leave it shut down. People can't go to the park, I don't care. The only people that the government shutdown really affects, because it never affects the military. They try to, it's going to affect, doesn't do that, doesn't affect critical services, never does. It affects things that don't affect most people. Where am I wrong?
Well, I wish it were as easy as letting the government shut down to fix everything. But the truth is the shutdown only affects a quarter of spending and none of the revenue policies, including all the spending through the tax code. And the threat of shutdowns puts a lot of power with the agenda setters, which are appropriations leaders and leadership generally. And instead of getting passage on the new appropriations through earning it with bottom-up inclusive processes in Congress, they end up bloating it because when you throw more money at the special interests that are all funded through that, then they're happy enough they don't complain to members of Congress. And so you can sort of ram it through against a holiday deadline. So the bloat that comes from the deals because of the threat of a shutdown actually makes things worse and tilts everything more towards Democrats. If you look at the votes for the CRs and appropriations that have been enacted, you see a lot more Democratic votes than you do Republican. And so that's not really a recipe for getting the waste under control.
Yeah. We need to have regular, there's 12 appropriations bills, right? We need to have regular appropriations bills. For the first time in a long time, we're actually discussing some of them now. Are we going to get through all 12? I don't know. But the fact that we're discussing them at all, Kurt, is a step forward, right? I mean, at least it's progress from where we've been, isn't it?
Well, let's back up a little bit. The 12 appropriations bills considered separately is something that came out of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974. This is something that Democrats wrote when they were in control of the House and the Senate, pushing back on President Richard Nixon. Oh, it doesn't really make sense to do a budget in that way. You're doing 12 different bills that differ from $7 billion for legislative branch to $700 billion for defense appropriations. And again, it's only a quarter of spending. So ultimately what we really need is for Congress to do a real budget with all spending, all revenue in the same bill, get all the committees involved, and then you can really start weeding out the nonsense wherever it is in the federal budget. So ending shutdowns kind of helps you get in that direction, but the next big step after that is moving to a real comprehensive budget with everything in it.
Yeah, we need a comprehensive. So how do we, here's the real question. We're at what, $37 trillion in debt. We have this massive spending outlay. We've got spending that never gets, they've been talking about spending my entire life and yours. And only for some fleeting moments have we ever been able to reel it in. And now that we've jacked it up because of COVID, getting back to pre-COVID spending levels is never going to happen. So the Fed just prints money. Makes my money worth less, your money worth. It's called inflation. It's a tax on all of us. How do we ever get it under control? They've been promising this my entire life. It's never happened. We continue to spend more, and we give money to illegal aliens and this project and that pet project and pork project, and nobody cares. I'm a little frustrated, as you can tell.
Yeah, historically, federal spending goes up quite a lot when there is a Democratic speaker, which in the recent 2 decades has been Nancy Pelosi, and she has just been a spendthrift. And then when Republicans get in power and there's a Republican speaker, the rate of increase slows down, but never enough to counteract what Democrats did before. So it's a systemic problem. We need to fix the budget system. There's actually going to be votes on balanced budget amendments in the House in September. Now, we don't expect that one would pass in September, but it is an opportunity to start changing people's minds about that a bipartisan balanced budget amendment is possible at some point once we rebuild the consensus. And then it will also open a lot of conversations about how to have a budget process that works, that has the incentives naturally pointed towards weeding out the nonsense. I have a book that came out recently about this, and it's a very hopeful thing. I think we can fix all these problems. It's just incentives.
Let me ask you about it. Let me ask you about your book. Where would you start? Sure. What would be the first weeds you yanked out by the root?
Oh boy, where to start? I mean, there's so much
Just give me one
nonsense
or
in
two.
foreign affairs, of course. There are still energy subsidies, green energy subsidies that we should get rid of. There are a lot of things the federal government is doing that are strictly not in the Constitution for the federal government to be doing. So education is something that states can and should handle. Surface transportation is another thing. I mean, it's good to have
Wouldn't it be
infrastructure,
better?
but you want to have it in the states.
I don't know where you live, Kurt, but wouldn't it be better if we had Uber cards as opposed to buses that cost $500,000 a piece or more and run around each city empty? I mean, that's more of the local level, but it's just insanity. Just give them Uber cards. Here, you get $1,000 worth of Uber rides a month. That'll take you to work in the grocery store this many times, right?
They're becoming driverless as we speak. Like, it's incredible the progress that's being made. So there's no reason to build any more light rail or these bus lines, especially like the crazy expensive like electric buses and that kind of thing.
Completely agree. Green energy subsidies. I want to just touch on this real quick. I have a client that advertised on this program that puts in geothermal systems, and he said the big beautiful bill took out a lot of the subsidies that have helped move his product for a while, and they're going to run out at the end of the year. So a lot of those are gone, aren't they?
That's right. Or they're phasing out over the next couple of years. The long-term budget challenge, though, is really mostly about federal healthcare programs that have an enormous amount of waste, could be so much more efficient, deliver better care, really focus on the patients and the families rather than the providers and the insurance companies. Right now, they're in service to the bureaucracy, and that diverts attention from the people they're actually supposed to serve. So much opportunity there. We've got a big imbalance in Social Security. There are ways of tackling that. The challenge is that members of Congress know what they need to do. They just don't know how to do it and survive politically.
Oh, they might know how to do it. They just don't do it. Anyhow, Kurt, I got to leave it there.
Some of them do.
They don't do it. That's a fact. They've been there their entire adult lives and still don't know how to do it. I don't buy that. Anyhow, Kurt Couchman, greatly appreciate that. Americans for Prosperity. Cut the spending, you piglets. Anyhow, thank you, sir. We'll be back after this. All right, let's see here. I'm going to go to the mailbag. I just got a really long, interesting note from a woman named Michaela. She said she was so upset watching the beatdowns in Cincinnati, she had to turn the program for a few minutes because she had the same thing happen to her. She lived in Washington, D.C., in a predominantly black neighborhood. She's a white girl. She was beaten severely to the point that she had spinal damage that has lingered with her. She's now in her late 60s. And so that these things go on and have gone on, people beating each other back and forth. Just the senseless violence, I guess I would say, to Michaela. I think it's awful. She said an older man and his wife tried to help her that night. He got his jaw broken before two other adult black men stepped in to stop the attack. Anyhow, I think it's important to have these stories that violence, brutal racial violence, goes both ways. It goes all directions, not just, but People are just hateful of people because of the way they look or act or talk or say. Just terrible. And her story is chilling. Maybe we'll have her on the program to talk more about that. Maybe we'll have her on to see what she has to say as we dig through all of this. All right. Greatly appreciate you being here today. You could always send, she sent me a note on Facebook. It's easier to go to stevegruber.com and send me an email. I'm much more likely to see it in a timely fashion. Comments on Facebook and other social media platforms, I open that door on occasion, not often. I've got piles of messages backed up here. So please send me an email. It's much more likely for me to get there and get it returned quickly. Paul Perez, president of the National Border Patrol Council, is up next here on the Steve Gruber Show. I'll be right back. All right. Let's see here. So much to cover here, but Paul Perez is the president of the National Border Patrol Council, that is. And we've seen rising threats against these people that put their lives on the line to protect our border. After years of being the Wild West and wide open, it's more dangerous now. Just like you see the ICE agents and CBP, they all get the brunt of this from activists and criminals alike, and not to mention the cartels and all the other threats. Paul, welcome back to the program.
Good to be with you, Steve. Thank you for having me.
All right, give us a rundown. Threats against Border Patrol agents, the political dynamics, the policy priorities. Is it worse today than it was a year ago? About the same? Where are we?
So as far as the rhetoric coming from the left and from some of the Democrats that are out there pushing this false narrative that our agents and officers are out there kidnapping people on the streets and holding them indefinitely, I can tell you what we're doing is exactly what President Trump promised the people when he was running for office again. And that's why he was elected, because everybody was sick and tired of exactly what President Biden did to this country. So President Biden allowed millions and millions of people into this country unvetted, many of whom have gone on to commit horrific crimes, everything from murder to robbery to burglary, everything in between. And so our agents and officers are out there doing exactly what he said we were going to do, which is starting the biggest mass deportation effort that this country has ever undertaken, and we're being very, very successful at it. So the rhetoric coming from the left is causing, a lot of issues for our agents because they're being doxxed, they're being assaulted, they're being threatened, more so than we've ever seen before. But what I can tell you is under President Trump's leadership, he's directed Attorney General Bondi to go after all of these perpetrators. So we're not going to back down. We're going to continue doing the job that we were hired to do, and anybody that impedes us, assaults us, or gets in the way is going to be held accountable as well. So right now, we're doing a great job in enforcing the law that Congress put on the books. These same people that have, stirred this up with their dangerous rhetoric are the ones that can make the changes to the law, but they refuse to do so because they want clicks, they want fundraisers, they want to scare the American people into making them think that we're doing something wrong, but we're applying the law as written.
Yeah. It's interesting that applying the law as written is somehow, a crisis now. It's a reason for people to panic. Enforcing the law for the left has become a crisis moment for them. And that's not just with this, it's across the board. Enforcing the law. Well, we need to do this, but we can't enforce. If we enforce it, we've never had a border crisis. We don't need immigration reform. We need to enforce the immigration laws around the books, and we need to get rid of the 1965 immigration policies signed by Lyndon Baines Johnson. That's what has to happen. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't disagree. The thing is, members of Congress who have known, they knew what was going on the southwest border, but they never wanted to come out and see it. We took several members of Congress, both from the Senate and the House, to the border during the chaos that was created. And they had to see it for themselves, because it was one thing to see it on video, one thing to see photos of it, but we wanted them to come see the thousands of people that were crossing every day into this country. Every day, not only facilitated by, but encouraged by President Biden and his administration. He staffed the Department of Homeland Security with open borders advocates who wanted nothing more than to allow as many people into this country as possible. And a lot of people that have asked me in the past, why do you think they did this? And I'll tell you, I sincerely believe they did it to change the electorate. They saw these people as potential Democratic voters later on. They were maybe hoping for mass amnesty, which is never going to happen, and they were allowing these people in. They taxed our communities. They taxed our citizens. They were using all types of taxpayer funds to support and benefit the people that should have never been allowed into the country. That's a disgrace. And I agree. We have been one of the most generous countries in the world, but we were completely taken advantage of, and the Democrats allowed it. They encouraged it. They facilitated it.
Yeah, they did, because, again, in an attempt to swing the... Well, and look, to be fair here, Paul, they did impact politics and policy in this country. For example, California. I wrote about this 15 years ago now. That California has members of Congress it is not entitled to, because they're counting illegal aliens in the state of California. They have at least 7 seats in Congress they should not have, all of which, by the way, belong to Democrats. Those seats should be in places like Florida and Texas and Utah, and not there. So it's not just about getting people to the polls to vote. It's about votes in Congress, which is even more important, and votes in the Electoral College, which might be even more important than single votes from illegals in this country. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a shame. It's disastrous policies like that that impact our country negatively. And so, the census is another way that, they looked at this and said, hey, how can we get more people in here? And unfortunately, it worked for them. Now, I believe 100% that states like Texas, possibly Florida, Texas just unveiled their redistricting their map yesterday, and they're looking to pick up additional seats because it's the right thing to do. You can't count illegal aliens like they did in California. We've had a huge
and the Democrats.
Texas.
It's a great point you bring up. Texas is talking about redistricting. They showed the map. I don't know if a lot of rhinos in the Texas House and Senate. We'll see if it goes through, but it would potentially pick up 5 Republican seats out of Texas. And California, others will tell you, if you do that, we'll change our deal. Look, in California, 17% of the seats in the congressional delegation are held by Republicans. Republicans get 40 to 45% of the vote in California routinely, yet they only have 17% of the seats in Congress. They've already rigged it in California. They've already rigged it elsewhere in Illinois and New York. They want to rig it further if Texas tries to balance its representation. It really is outrageous.
Dirty politics.
Yeah.
Dirty politics, and unfortunately, they have the numbers because of what you said earlier. They count illegal aliens in California. It's a shame, but what they should be doing is looking out for the country. What is best for their constituents? You had members of Congress going to ICE facilities and asking to see their constituents. Those are not their constituents.
No.
Their constituents are the taxpayers, the U.S. citizens that voted to put them in office. You had a senator flying to El Salvador to see a Venezuelan gang member, terrorist, who he said was a man from Maryland, one of his constituents.
No.
These people are not their constituents.
That's correct. You're exactly right. I got to leave it there, but you're exactly right. You're making some great points here, and I look forward to having you back on the program. But you're nailing it, Paul.
Anytime.
Paul Perez, president of the National Border Patrol Council. Really appreciate you being here, Paul. Fight the good fight. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll do some cleanup here in aisle 3 of some things that are going on. I'll be back after this. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Oh, and remember, people have been asking me, how can I see the show, hear the show live? I'm telling you, SteveGruber.com, you have a listen live button. We're live on Twitter, X, if you will. We're live on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, a whole variety of places. And soon you'll be able to watch live at SteveGruber.com, too, I'm told. I'll be right back. All right, I want to share something here. Very insightful, and I think it lays it out quite well, and I want to share it with you here. It comes from NAS. It's a profile on X, right? An X user. The Scotland meeting was not about tariffs. Trump and von der Leyen's 15% deal was just the headline that the news agencies went with. You know, these news companies are lazy. Trust me, these news companies are lazy. That's why they take the Russia stories. They just ran with them. They didn't investigate. They didn't dig deep into it. They just went with it because it was easy and it was salacious and it was exciting and it was, drama. That's why they went with it. The real agreement changes everything. The media is not telling you that. That's because they're lazy. They're talking about the 15% tariff. They're missing the massive shift happening behind the scenes. It was not about avoiding a trade war. It was about engineering the largest investment commitment in modern history. It's the biggest trade deal ever. I've been telling you, the biggest trade deal ever. It's a big deal. Here's what happened at Turnberry. Europe agreed to spend, I've been saying $1.35 trillion. This says $1.4 trillion with America over the next in just 3 years, by the way, $1.4 trillion in 3 years. $750 billion in American energy purchases. I'm going to get back to that because that is remarkable. It's a cornerstone for this deal. $750 billion in American energy purchases, $600 billion in additional U.S. investments. The numbers are actually staggering. The tariff is just the beginning of the story. It's higher, by the way. 15% is higher than pre-2024 levels, but it saved both economies from a crisis. Trump began at 30%, then he threatened 50%, pushing for it. Europe just bought it down with record-breaking investment promises. Europe bought down their rate. It's like buying points on a mortgage. If you put more money down, your rate will be lower. The more money you put down, the lower your rate's going to be. Like buying points on a mortgage. That's what happened here. Certain sectors got complete exemptions, by the way, that you probably haven't heard. Aircraft and aircraft components, no tariffs. Semiconductor and high-tech items, no tariffs. Critical chemicals, no tariffs. Some agricultural products as well. They're not random. They are strategic exceptions in the supply chain to make sure we remain strong and powerful. While the media focused on the tariff headlines, Trump secured something far more valuable. A guaranteed customer, 27 of them, in fact, for American energy. 27 EU countries are now guaranteed customers. Wow. What a way to run. You want to talk about a business plan? Have 27 guaranteed customers that are big customers every day, every month, every year going forward. Now you can build something. Massive European investment in U.S. infrastructure and defense, too, because they're buying military equipment and energy. A framework that other countries are now desperate to replicate. And the speed of all of this is absolutely shocking. A few weeks ago, I played the Abby Phillips piece from CNN. Oh, my God, the tariffs. They're going to destroy America's economy. We're going to be desperate and destitute. Oh, it's going to be the worst stock market since 1931. Remember all the doom and gloom garbage. None of it was true, by the way. Trump used those tariffs to parlay it into the greatest trade deals ever created with the EU, the UK. Korea just came through. This morning, see, Korea is just about ready to sign their deal. Japan, right? Japan already proves that it works. They brought $550 billion. They got, by the way, Japan got the same rate, 15%. $550 billion from Japan will give you 15%. $1.4 trillion from the EU will give you 15%. That's the offer. And the ripple effects are already out there. You can see them. You can hear them. Treasury Secretary Bessent confirming 75 countries, and I'll bring you their best offers. Everyone wants to cut a deal before they lose that opportunity. For many, that's tomorrow. That is tomorrow for a lot of folks. European leaders are publicly celebrating, but privately, they know the truth. This isn't a partnership. It's America collecting tribute from its largest trading partners. Europe just agreed to fund American energy independence. That's what Europe just agreed to fund our dominance in world economics. Steel and aluminum tariffs remain untouched. Pharmaceuticals still on the negotiating table. We'll get to that. But the framework is set. Massive investment in exchange for market access. You want access to the American markets? Step up to the pay window. If you want access to the American markets, step up to the pay window and do it now. This is how you create an economic empire again. One great deal at a time. And look, this deal with the EU is great for us. They didn't get anything out of it except they got access to our markets. We created 27 permanent clients for our energy, plus 27 clients for our military equipment. And the list goes on. These are the greatest deals ever negotiated. And here's, and again, I was reading a pretty well-versed never-Trumper here a bit earlier this morning. I get up and I read all day. Ivy says, all you do is consume. Yeah, well, it's true. I consume this stuff all the time and get as many different points of contact with information as I can so that I can kind of sift it out and then share it with you and analyze it and make sure that we have the best information possible. But these are the best deals ever created. The $1.4 trillion deal with the EU is the single biggest trade deal ever put together in the world, in the history of the world, period. And it lays the groundwork for a prosperous America and a prosperous future. Jobs will be here in all sectors. And cleaning up the border, another great accomplishment. I don't know why Donald Trump's numbers are not great. I don't care about Epstein more than I care about putting together a $1.4 trillion deal with Europe. Now, do I want pedophiles held accountable? Of course I do, but it's not more important at this juncture for an old dead pedophile to raise his head from the grave and mess with the great things that are being done here. We'll deal with that in due time. We'll also deal with Barack Obama, John Brennan, James Clapper, and all the rest who had their burn bags confiscated just before they hit the incinerator. So much good news. So much good news. I'll take a break. Yeah, I'm smiling, folks. That's me with a big grin on my face. I'll be right back. All right, time for sports with Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. A full schedule of games in Major League Baseball yesterday. American League winners included Toronto, Detroit, and Houston. National League winners included Miami, the Chicago Cubs, and San Diego. Off the field, there were a number of trades in MLB. The Seattle Mariners got third baseman Eugenio Suarez from Arizona for 3 players. Also, the Philadelphia Phillies got closer Joan Duran from Minnesota for a pair of prospects. The New York Mets got reliever Ryan Helsley from St. Louis for 3 minor leaguers. And Boston got starting pitcher Steven Matz from St. Louis for a minor league infielder. The Major League Baseball trade deadline is tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. In the WNBA last night, there were 3 games. Indiana beat Phoenix 107-101. Atlanta squeaked by Dallas 88-85. And Minnesota beat New York 100-93. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, thank you for that. I thought you could just pull that up from the internet, Anthony.
Well, I'm going. Give me a second.
All right, I got to show you. I got to share this. There's one thing that freaks Ivy out probably more than anything else. I'm just a little inside. She's not here, right? Here's something that freaks Ivy out: carnivals and carnival rides. The whole deal. She won't go anywhere near those things, right? So then you see crazy video. Like I just saw this crazy video from I think Saudi Arabia, and this ride goes dramatically wrong. Watch this. Anthony just pulled it up for us. Here it is. Boom. Play. Boom. Here they come. Giant pendulum. Oh, whoa. The whole thing broke in half. They all crashed to the ground. It reminds me of the, what's the song? In the Calliope Crash to the Ground. Yeah. Ouch. All right, that's enough of that. That's what that's the stuff that Ivy's nightmares are made of right there. I just couldn't help but show you that. Yikes!
There had to be fatalities.
No, 25 people injured. Nobody died because they landed flat on the bottom. You know.
Do you think in Saudi Arabia they'll get
their heads cut off?
For that?
They'll just butcher them in public. Oh, good Lord. Thanks, Anthony, for that. Yeah, you survived, but we're going to take your head off. All right. We'll be back. It's the Steve Gruber Show. All right, launching another brand new hour here, the Steve Gruber Show. Glad to have you along for the conversation. A lot to cover this hour. Here are three big things you need to know. Number one, future uncertainty for guaranteed income programs funded by pandemic money here in Michigan. We'll talk about that in the city of Ann Arbor, who's affected. Number two, a Michigan senator seeks to end SOAR, the SOAR fund, and MEDC as well. Yeah, we'll talk about that. And speaking of talking about business, number three, joining me now is Wendy Block. She's the Michigan Chamber Senior Vice President of Business Advocacy. Wendy, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you here. All right, so we've got it looks to me, we've got a Trojan horse here, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Any other thing you'd like to use? Invest in Michigan kids. Boy, that sounds nice. Invest in Michigan kids. That sounds like a nice thing that people should support, right? Except that it's not really what it is. It's a thing to hide a graduated income tax on a ballot proposal. What do you make of this?
Yeah, so the Board of State Canvassers, they're the entity in Michigan that approves issues for the ballot. They're meeting later today to discuss a proposed amendment to change Michigan's longstanding flat income tax rate and to nearly double the rate for those who have income over $500,000 as single filers or $1 million as joint filers. This is not good because number one, would make Michigan the seventh highest income tax rate in the country with the highest in the Midwest. But the big issue here is more about the impact that this will have on small and mid-sized businesses. It would be devastating as most of these impacted taxpayers are what we call pass-through entities. They're LLCs, they're partnerships, they're S-corps, and their business income is actually taxed at the individual level, meaning this change would hit those job providers directly, taking their rate from 6% to 9.25%, a whopping 9.25%.
6% to 9.25% on all business income, or when you say graduated?
Just above those thresholds. But, what you kind of pointed out at the beginning here is that every word in this proposed ballot proposal has clearly been message test. They call themselves Invest in My Kids, yet the money is only required to be deposited into the school aid. Not a single dollar of that is guaranteed to ever make it to kids or make it to the classroom. And they're really just hiding who this will impact. They talk about it impacting millionaires and billionaires, but what they don't talk about is the devastating impact it would have on these small businesses. So, the Board of Canvassers is meeting today to discuss this, to see if they can move ahead with collecting signatures. I think what we want your listeners to know is that when you go to the farmer's market or you go to outdoor concert this summer and somebody asks you to sign this innocuous sounding petition to get this issue on the ballot, doesn't it sound so great? You've got to remember there's small print here that needs to be reviewed. The best thing to do is just to decline to sign. But if you do want to sign it, you need to ask questions. You need to actually read the language of the ballot proposal, not just 100 words that somebody has come up with and, crafted in a marketing message to sound great. So that, I think, is the takeaway for today.
So the graduated income tax, it would target, obviously, small business, pass-through corporations. We have an S corporation here, one of our companies, would drill us, obviously, at 9.25%. Look, Michigan's already losing to Indiana and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin on jobs and business investment in the state. I mean, we're getting killed by these people. This is going to be worse than Jennifer Granholm's lost decade. I mean, going down this road is a disaster. And who are these people, by the way? Are they Michigan people? I'm going to say probably not.
Well, we're still trying to figure that out. Their campaign finance reports are not exactly telling, but we do not believe that this is largely funded by in-state groups. We believe that out-of-state groups are responsible for this. We've seen it in other states. This has been proposed in other states, has gone down at the ballot in several states. It has been passed in others, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions that have to still be answered here as things move forward.
Yeah, but it would be another blow to Michigan's business
Oh,
environment.
100%. Yes. This is not going to make us any more competitive. In fact, it's going to make us a lot less competitive. You know, people who have means, they can decide where they want to live. And if you're going to tax them at this high of a rate, they very well may decide to leave, and that means Michigan loses.
So let me get this straight. I mean, we spend more on education than we ever have, right? We continue to spend more. And Mississippi is kicking us in the tail, right? The Mississippi Miracle, because they're actually teaching kids how to read and write. We've spent a tremendous amount on roads. They're still not fixed. And they want to raise taxes. And there's a pretty decent plan from the Republicans to get us there. But all these ideas of raise taxes and throw money at this and that and everything, it's not working. It's killing us.
Yeah.
And it's killing our competitiveness.
Yeah.
Look at Tennessee and Ohio and Indiana. We're getting creamed. Go ahead.
Yeah, we would agree. You know, there is no plan here in terms of how this money that will be collected from this huge income tax increase would actually improve student achievement, boost student achievement in any way. And in fact, there's no guarantees that the money even makes it to the classroom. The legislature ultimately gets to decide where this money goes after it gets deposited in the school aid fund. We believe that we need a solid plan to boost achievement and then, you know, to figure out, well, what is that going to cost, if anything, right? I mean, we spend, as you pointed out, we spend more money than we ever have in Michigan, and yet achievement continues to decline. This isn't a solid plan to increase achievement. It's just a solid plan to raise more revenue and to tell taxpayers they got to pay more.
Yeah. How much on a $500,000 income? Let me see here. I mean, that's another 20 grand. Is that what it is in taxes? Something like that. $40,000.
Yeah, I haven't done the exact math, but I would say, you know, you would think this is going to bring in a ton of money. And, you know, for your everyday listener, it probably sounds like a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things of an $80 billion state budget, $80 billion plus state budget, this will only raise another $1.6 billion. It's really not that much money when you start talking about it in those terms,
Sure.
Which is somewhat interesting.
And well, I'm running the numbers here because I'm curious. I mean, but for a small business, it's the difference between hiring a new employee and not, or two new employees,
Yeah,
or getting
exactly.
a piece of equipment they need to go forward. It's the difference of being viable and not being viable. That's what it is. Anyhow, Wendy.
Yeah, it is estimated, that 2/3 or more of the taxpayers impacted by this proposal are small and mid-sized businesses. So again, you know, this may sound good when somebody talks to you about it, but really you need to understand the details here and need to understand the impacts.
Absolutely. Decline to sign. That's where I am with it. I think I'm going to take your advice on that one. I will not sign that one. Wendy Block from the Michigan Chamber. There it is. Invest in Michigan Kids sounds nice. It's not what it's about. It's about cranking up taxes one more time, and this time in significant ways. Wendy, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk more about students. We're going to talk about student athletes, how they make money, the NIL deal, all of that coming up on The Steve Gruber Show. All right, so the future of student athletes. A lot of changes have happened for student athletes, of course, in the last few years. You know, the NIL changed everything in college sports, and kids can jump from place to place looking for the best deal. We saw the incoming quarterback, University of Michigan, getting paid, what, $12 million, some ridiculous amount of money. Joining me now, Dr. Thomas Dieters is the board president, Charitable Gift America. Doctor, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Steve.
All right, so the future of student athletes in the state of Michigan. Just bringing people up to speed here as to, where we are compared to where we were, just 5 years ago. Everything's changed. The whole, as they say, the whole playing field has changed, hasn't it?
Everything has changed in the last 5 years. We went from a student athlete getting a scholarship and not allowed to get any outside income to now, like you just mentioned, there's kids making 6, 7, even 8 figures now in college athletics. Yeah, we saw that at the University of Michigan. Now, Joe Tate, Democrat here, has introduced House Bill 4643. He's in an effort to protect name, image, and likeness. What does this mean? Well, what it means is it's an amendment to the current laws in the state of Michigan. And right now, today, now with everything changing, it could be different tomorrow, but the rules that the NCAA has implemented with a cap on compensation for the kids, as it stands today, the schools in the state of Michigan are really in violation of state law in Michigan. And so what this amendment does is allows the schools to pay these student athletes fair market value. It's really about states' rights and free markets. That's really what this boils down to. What do you mean? Well, with the NCAA coming in and saying there's a $20.5 million cap on compensation for all student athletes at each school, not just football, not just basketball, all sports. So what they've said is, we're capping your compensation. You can't make any more than that. And it didn't come about from a collective bargaining agreement. They just implemented it. So now, even like that quarterback you just mentioned, he wouldn't be able to get a deal like that. And what's wrong with that? Here's my question. You see, here's what's going to happen. Yep. Other sports that don't create big piles of money are going to go away. They're going to be destroyed. Schools can't pay $12 million to a quarterback and keep their lacrosse team. That's just the way it is, Doctor. They're going to be gone. They're going to destroy college. I mean, it's destroying college athletics as it is. Oh, I agree. I agree. And I played college athletics at Michigan State. I played in one of those sports. I played baseball. So that would be one of the sports that maybe you're referring to that might go away. Well, they'll have to. You can't. Look, these universities are broke already. They're already gouging and raising tuition and everything else because they're already broke. You start spending money like this on a quarterback that may or may not perform. You can't keep the non-revenue sports alive. You just can't. That's surely a possibility, but as it stands right now, and it certainly isn't going to change, is the schools aren't paying it. The donors are paying for it. So essentially, the schools are having outside income that are paying these players, and it's not impacting their revenue as it stands right now because they're having donors pay for these students. That's all this bill does. It allows NIL contracts, which are funded by donors, to pay the student athletes. It actually could help these other sports because they're being cut out now from this revenue share because all of it has to go to football and men's basketball. So this would actually help those other sports. Well, I guess the jury will be out on that. You think it's essential for college athletics to do this? I think that this NIL stuff is just terrible. Yeah, I agree. And this would be a first step, but it does need to go away. I totally agree with you. There's no reason to believe that any person that's being paid 6 and 7 figures and their time is being controlled by the school or the employer in this case, there's no possible way that these are contract workers. They are employees. And so having more structure and lowering the cost, but not just lowering the cost on the players, but there's never been a cap on administrators or coaches either. So it all needs to come together and make financial sense.
None of it makes financial sense to me. I mean, and the other part of it is that these students, they can come take their big payday and then they just run off again. They just run off to the next school if it doesn't work out for them, right?
That's exactly right.
And here's my other question. Why do you have no Republican support here? Why is this a Democrat-only bill?
Well, the Democrats introduced it. We're hoping to get it. We think it's a bipartisan issue. We really do.
But you're not demonstrating it's a bipartisan issue here. It looks like a Democrat issue. Why? If it's so good and will save college athletics, as you say here, why do you not have Republicans on board?
Oh, I don't think it's going to say. I don't think there anything is going to save college athletics. But as the education gets out there across the state, and Republican lawmakers learn about states' rights and free markets, I think that would be attractive to Republicans.
Well, it hasn't been so far. I guess the jury's still out on that one, Doctor. We'll have to wait and find out.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
But I appreciate you being here. We'll see where this goes, and we'll see if it is helpful or. But I don't know if it'll get through the state house, so it might be a moot point, Doctor. But we'll talk about it again.
It might be. But to your point, I think the issue that I hear, and we've written more than 1,000 NIL contracts across the country, the part that fans don't like is the transferring around from school to school every single year. That's what fans don't like.
There should be a closed period. They shouldn't be able to go any time after they sign, or they don't like this. They can transfer any time of the year. That part's got to stop, Doctor. I got to leave it there.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Can't jump ship anytime you want just because your feelings got hurt. Loyalty is kind of important. Doctor, thank you. We'll talk again soon. I'll take a break and be back. It is the Steve Gruber Show. Nancy Mace, the front runner to be the next governor of South Carolina. I bring that to your attention because she's been an outspoken, visible member of Congress. Sometimes you see members of Congress and you go, I don't know who that is. You look at them and go, not sure. Then you've got people, you know exactly who it is. AOC on the left is an example. Nancy Mace, as a Republican, is an example. Anyhow, she's leading the pack right now in South Carolina, picking up 16% of the vote. The Attorney General, Alan Wilson, got 15%. My friend Ralph Norman got 6%. He's, I don't know if he's even in the race, but they're considering joining, I suppose. South Carolina needs a leader who will lower state income tax to zero, protect women and children, restore law and order, expel the establishment, rebuild our energy grid. To those that want to come after me, I say bring it. Big decisions coming soon. That's what Mace posted on her X account Monday. She's leading this thing. And are you surprised? The answer is no. I am not surprised at all. In fact, I think that makes sense, I suppose. This part of the program brought to you by Wolverine Water Systems. Wolverine Water is Michigan's premier water treatment company for 75 years. Wolverine has been there to serve you. WolverineWaterSystems.com. You can find out more. My good friend Paul Mahaney is over there. I'd love to hear from you today as you find out about Wolverine Water. If your shower's stained with rust, and your clothes aren't getting clean, you don't like the way you feel after a shower, there's a way to fix that. Or if you just want a reverse osmosis water system, so you have the best drinking water of anybody in the neighborhood, again, the place to go, WolverineWaterSystems.com. They've got it all for you. Michigan-made, American-made products. How do you beat that? And your neighbors, your friends and neighbors are selling and installing and looking after your gear as well. WolverineWaterSystems.com. Tell Paul I sent you on over, would you? I'll be right back. Okay. Man, it's been a good, busy day, hasn't it? A lot of great information. Yeah, a lot of stuff coming in. Here's our next guest, Jennifer Greenberg, the VP of Government Affairs for the Peninsula Fiber Network. Jennifer, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Steve. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you for asking. Construction beginning on $87 million worth of broadband infrastructure. It's going to improve connectivity, we're told, in underserved Michigan communities. What does that mean? Which peninsula are we talking about? The big one or the smaller, nicer one up north?
Well, actually, it's going to benefit the entire state. So
Great.
with a middle mile, if you're familiar with middle mile technology, we're sort of the unsung hero of the broadband network. You have your internet superhighway that everyone wants to get on, and then you have your houses that need internet access. And middle mile completes that middle section so that we can go ahead and deliver that data and deliver those services. Internet service providers use middle mile for connectivity, which obviously in the end benefits the end user. So the other benefit to the state is that this project, it's an $87 million project. It really offers some unique opportunities for economic development for the state of Michigan. So when we think about high-tech companies, we think about data centers, we think about manufacturing and other high-tech industries, they need high-capacity broadband networks for their operations. So this project builds that critical infrastructure in 3 distinct locations throughout the state, and that's the infrastructure that those industries can rely on. So it allows the state, cities, counties, regions to attract economic opportunities that wouldn't have been available before.
Yeah. Who's spending the $87 million?
So PFN and 123Net, who's our partner in this project, we're contributing $26 million in private investment. And then the $61.2 million is through the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, so NTIA. That is a federal grant through their Enabling Middle Mile Broadband program. So we were fortunate enough to win that grant. And so combined with our private investment, that's how it's being funded.
All right, so a lot of tax dollars going into this. How many people are we talking about serving here? What's the reach? What's the goal? What's the time frame on this? I only say that because sometimes it takes a while for government to get its things done. I've noticed over my lifetime. What's the time frame here?
The good news is that this project is right on track. We have 5 years to build it, so we will be done in June of 2028, and we're moving along. So far, so good with all of the guidelines. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of permitting and construction and engineering that goes into these, but things are moving along. So at this point, we don't anticipate any slowdown. And so we have milestones that we need to meet, and we're go ahead and doing that.
So what's the takeaway here? What happens when this is all said and done? Underserved communities, Flint, Port Huron, where else?
So as you know, we celebrated the groundbreaking for Route 3. So that is a route that goes from City of Flint through Genesee, Lapeer, Macomb, St. Clair, and then it ends counties, and then it ends in Port Huron. So along that route, it puts in middle mile infrastructure, and then it goes through areas that have a significant unserved population. So while this project will not necessarily connect somebody's homes, we're providing that background infrastructure that I talked about, so internet service providers can more economically connect those houses. So the end goal is to get houses connected. But in the meantime, as we deploy this middle mile, it offers quite a bit of other benefits for the state of Michigan. So you're talking about redundant networks, you're talking about resilient networks, and it's not just PFN and 123Net that can use these networks. Other carriers can as well. It's an open access part of the grant requirements. So it really benefits when we talk about critical infrastructure and, the other 2 routes, aside from the Flint route. One starts in Benton Harbor. It goes across Lake Michigan into Chicago, into one of the largest internet exchange points in the country. And then we have another connection there, and then we come back across Lake Michigan, and we connect to St. Joe. And then from there, we go up to Byron Center near Grand Rapids. So just that route alone, we offer connectivity that doesn't exist in the state of Michigan. Obviously, we have challenges as a peninsula. So this adds an underwater route, which really helps to secure some of those networks as well. It keeps them free from construction and disruption. And then the other benefit to the state, when you asked about the peninsula's upper and lower, we have a special place in our heart for the UP. PFN is headquartered in Marquette, Michigan. And our parent companies are 2 traditional broadband companies up in Marquette and Baraga. So our second route connects the peninsulas through Gulliver. Then we stop on Beaver Island after crossing Lake Michigan again, and then we end in Charlevoix and make our way over to Gaylord. So today, the only infrastructure that connects the fiber broadband infrastructure that connects the two peninsulas is across the Mackinac Bridge. So adding another route to connect that for these broadband networks is a wonderful thing for the state. It creates a lot of redundancy and critical infrastructure.
So when's our completion date? When all these things, and from there, are we fully connected? Are we there where we need to be? And because another thing that I wonder about is satellites. A lot of this stuff's done by satellite now, and the reason I bring that up, are we putting in cables here and lines that are old technology? I guess that's my real question. Is it old technology, or are we going to be up to speed? No pun intended.
So interestingly enough, when we talk about putting in these large fiber lines, our industry actually calls it future proofing, because you're putting in enough capacity in enough lines that's going to be able to handle the data traffic and everything else that comes after this. Certainly satellite is a wonderful technology that can be used in certain places, but when you're talking about transporting critical infrastructure such as public safety information and high tech, they're talking about quantum computing over in Chicago. I mean, all of these things, we come from an area where it talks about a wired connection. You can't haul that sort of data through satellite. So satellite has its place, but middle mile helps to get things where they need to go.
All right, and again, this will be done when?
It will be done in June of 2028.
All right, we'll see if that happens. Tight timeline, Jennifer, but maybe we can get that done. I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Steve. Have a great day.
All right, the Jeffrey says it's a good idea. I'm still looking into it. By the way, here's what, and I did look this up. Direct funding for telephone line build out by companies like Bell we didn't pay for companies like Bell Telephone to put in lines. The government offered low interest loans through the Rural Electrification Administration and rural co-ops, but we did not pay money for companies to put in phone lines and so forth. That's a fact, Jeffrey. I'm sorry, my friend. Just checked it. You can check too at Grok. Anything you want to ask. Ain't life great? I'm going to take a break and be back. When I come back, Congresswoman Lisa McClain is scheduled to join me. I hope she's with us right after this on The Steve Gruber Show. All right, back to it here. We got a lot to cover here in just a couple of minutes with my next guest is Congresswoman Lisa McClain, my good friend who was born and raised in the beautiful city of Stockbridge, Michigan. And before she began her journey, which delivered her to the House of Representatives in 2021, she is now the House Republican Conference Chair, among other things. Congresswoman, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me. Hope you're having a good day.
Oh, we are. Always a good day to have you here. Let me talk about a couple of things. There's some things I want to talk about, like the one big beautiful bill in your Common Sense Act. But I've got to ask you about this incredible trade deal with the EU put together by Donald Trump. This is the most remarkable deal. It's $1.4 trillion in investment. And what he has done here, here's the beauty of it, that most people aren't talking about. He has delivered 27 guaranteed customers for American energy and American military products, plus forcing them to invest in America. I mean, if you're in business, you got 27 guaranteed customers, hello, that's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah. That is a pretty good day for America, wouldn't you say?
I would say, yeah.
Just compare and contrast that to the last administration where companies were leaving America. They were going elsewhere to do their business. Now, President Trump is making all of these countries come back to the table to renegotiate their trade deals. And guess what? They're doing it. And it's actually in our favor. Imagine that. The hope, the prosperity, the ability, and the certainty for these businesses to plan for American future with jobs in America. I mean, it is very difficult to even comprehend all the wins that gives us long term. But I'll tell you what, I'd rather be us than anybody else right now.
Amen to that. You know, I heard Scott Bessent say, where would you invest your money right now? He said the United States of America. That was his whole answer. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Look, here's the thing. We got the deal from Japan, $600 billion, give or take, $1.4 trillion from the EU. Just got a deal from Vietnam. This means for the last 2 days, we've been meeting with China in Stockholm, Sweden. And Bessent says that's gone very well. We have the foundation, we're told, for a trade deal with China. What can you tell us about that?
Well, you're dealing with two skilled business people in President Trump and Secretary Bessent, no question. What they've done, I think China's going to be a little bit more difficult, right? China's going to have to save a little bit of face, but the mere fact that China's coming to the table and they're beginning to get a framework for a deal, you want to talk about progress in the big scheme of things? We never talked about that before. Now we're talking about it, right?
Yeah.
And I think China's following because they see the writing on the wall. Listen, China has an economy that they need to worry about too. And now they know, China knows that America is back, and they got to get in the game or they're going to be out of business.
That's right.
And they can't afford to do that.
No, they can't. You know, Xi Jinping, a lot of people are concerned that he's not going to be there for a variety of reasons. He does not have the iron grip on power he had just, 12 or 18 months ago. So that's a big change. Now, before we run out of time here, though, I want to make sure I get to your Common Sense Act. It just passed the Financial Services Committee. What is your Common Sense Act? What do people need to know?
It's really simple. We talk about cutting wasteful spending. It costs about 3 cents to produce a 1 cent penny. That doesn't make a lot of sense. We would save, depending on how many pennies that we produce, between $200 and $300 million a year. I realize that's a rounding error for government, but at the end of the day, just for a play on words, it doesn't make sense. The other thing that we're doing in this act is we're reformulating the nickel. Right now, it costs about 13 cents to produce a 5 cent nickel. We are reducing that cost to about 3 cents as well, and I'm working on that with Representative Lucas. So we're trying to save money with our $36 trillion, deficit and debt that we have. We're trying to save money at every step of the way, and these are just too small, but makes progress on the spending. I mean, we all have to tighten our belt, and this just makes sense. So It's really simply put, we're just cutting out wasteful spending and getting America to be more efficient and more effective in their currency.
You know, and I'm going to stay with currency for the last minute and a half I have here. You go back to April. It's going to be the worst April on the stock market since 1929 and blah, blah, blah. And the tariffs are going to create inflation. The whole world's going to hell. Well, actually, what happened is we got a GDP of 3% yesterday. The jobs numbers are up. Income is up. The price of gasoline is cheaper than it was a year ago, a month ago, and a week ago. And everything seems pretty good from where I sit here in the heart of Michigan. What are your thoughts?
You are spot on. The doomsday, I mean, the Democrats, the economists, they want negative because they don't want Trump to succeed. But the difference is President Trump cares about the American people, and you can't deny the facts, right? You can spew all the lies out of your and fear-mongering, but at the end of the day, it's the facts that rule, right? 3% GDP growth. We talk about, anybody who talks about, oh my gosh, well, the one big beautiful bill is now going to cost so much money. Well, that argument's out the window. And maybe the GDP growth is because of the one big beautiful bill, because it gave tax certainty. It avoided, which the Democrats wanted, the largest tax increase for Americans, for working family Americans. So at the end of the day, the facts don't lie. You can fearmonger all you want, but America is back. Manufacturing is back. Working class families are back. I'll tell you, there's nowhere that I'd rather be right now than under the leadership of Republicans and Donald J. Trump. No place I'd rather be than America right now.
I agree with you on that. Congresswoman Lisa McClain, always a pleasure talking to you. When you come back next time, we're going to talk about those pesky midterms and everything else that's on the horizon. But I greatly appreciate you checking in today. Thank you.
Happy to do so. Enjoy the day.
You too, my friend. There you have it. Congresswoman Lisa McClain here on the program. A lot going on and good stuff. I agree with her. There's no place I would rather be than in the United States of America. Final thoughts after this. All right. I really enjoy talking to her, by the way. She's just so, Lisa McLean is just so to the point, on point, bam, bam, bam. That's why she's one of Donald Trump's favorites, by the way, and she has become one of Donald Trump's favorites, Lisa McLean, who grew up 15 minutes from me, apparently, or maybe not even that far. Glad to have her on the job. Really appreciate her coming. And she's always wanted to do so. So she's becoming a good friend of the program, and I appreciate that. So there you have it, Lisa McLean. And being able to have access to keep you informed as to what's happening. The Common Sense Act. So the penny's going away. The nickel's going to be made out of zinc, I think. The thing about pennies now, if you have old pennies, real pennies, copper, pennies that are primarily copper, they're worth 2.5 to 3 cents. And there's a copper shortage in America. There's a good chance a lot of those pennies will be melted down. And if they're not in production and circulation anymore, that's legal. My understanding, I'll have to ask some folks that I know, but that is my understanding, that it is legal to melt that stuff down. Yeah. So that's where we're going to leave it for today. The economy is good. It's on the upswing. If you want to invest in the United States of America. Get rid of the penny and the nickel and other wasteful spending. Lower taxes, lower regulation. Let Doge and the AI machine cut 100,000 regulations. That's all stuff on the path to prosperity. I truly believe. I do. You can catch this program every day live on X, Facebook. We're live on Getter. We're live on Rumble. We're live on YouTube. A multitude of places you can catch this program. Tell your friends. Share the wealth. Share the love. Fight the good fight, my friends, and keep the faith. God bless America. Really. I'm Steve Gruber, and this is The Steve Gruber Show. Remember, between now and the next time we talk, only you can save America.